Okay, so this is the cafe that Cammy suggested. He said he'd be here. I apologize for arriving later than I should. I just got here myself. That's good, at least. And you can stop being so formal around me. Treat me as if you're me, which you are me. And me using isn't so formal around others. Oh, okay then. Are you always like this? Only when I need to be. A city such as this craving chaos provides little time to socialize. Maybe even none if we're unlucky. Well, the formalities can drop when we're both conversing. Okay then. I realize you haven't made YouTube content in such a long time. What happened? Frickin' lack of motivation struck me once again. You have no idea how annoying it is trying to regain it, but having constant anxiety about looking for a job. Because of the job itself? That and because of who I am. It's the people around that I'm most worried about. That's not good. And so real life issues struck with me again, causing my lack of continuation. Why is being an adult so friggin' difficult? I was meant to tackle a review. What were you planning on reviewing? Oh, just this game called Sonic Frontiers. Sonic Frontiers. That came out recently, right? Good luck with that. Thanks. What can I get you two today? Hot chocolate. Belgian iced chocolate.
Are the key.
I'm here, reaching for across these new frontiers. With my life, fight this fear. In my hands, I hold the ones I love. Walk forward through the downtime. Always to new horizons.
The 2010s definitely wasn't the best time to be a Sonic fan. Given the state the franchise had been in for the past 13 years, the meta era of Sonic games basically destroyed the series' reputation. Although then again, it's a pretty unoriginal thing to say. At least after Sonic 06, the rest of the Dark Age era prior to 2010 still have been faithful to the series. Then 2010 comes along, and while gameplay is still a mixed bag, writing was a massive downgrade, and also from a reputation of the games in general. Colors, Generations, and Mania may have been phenomenal, but Free Riders and Rise of Lyric were abysmal, Forces felt like the devs weren't trying, and the obscurity of Lost World. But there's always bound to be diamonds in the rough, and 22 comes around to bring a lot of great Sonic content. While the Sonic Origins collection was a mixed bag and adds up controversy, the Sonic 2 movie was a cinema success and did well in the box office, Sonic Prime was a shockingly good Netflix original, and then there's the video game, Sonic Frontiers, which was the next mainline Sonic game that we hadn't got for 5 years after the release of Sonic Forces. In fact, the game was in development right after Forces was released, so it was a long development. It was introduced as Project Sonic 2022 in the 2021 Sonic Central, and didn't get another trailer until the Game Awards months later. Then again, with no news until out of nowhere, Sega announced on the official Sonic channel that IGN would be showcasing the game as a part of the IGN First series all across June. The world premiere trailer dropped and it was a mess in poor quality and marketing issues. It looked slow and completely empty with a crap ton of pop-in and bad animation, and people blamed IGN for this when it was the people over at Sega whose gameplay was showcased. Then the same thing happened again with the combat trailer. Normal enemies took so long to kill that it felt like that this is what fighting them in the game was going to be like. It was no surprise that the fanbase ended up getting pissed off, and I can't believe I defended these trailers when they came out. People lost hope for the game being anything good, and then the story trailer at Gamescom dropped. Voice lines for Sonic sounded hella serious, and the graphics and gameplay have improved immensely. People ended up hyped for Frontiers for once again, but some people even said that they wanted the game immediately. More trailers and more news ended up dropping until the Showdown trailer happened, being the final trailer before the game released, and this is one of the best trailers I've ever seen for a video game ever. And then on November 8th, 2022, the game released. And it was an absolute success across the Sonic community. I didn't get the game on launch day like I wanted to, but I did get it on the very first weekend, so my feelings on the game were very positive to say the least. And so I'm gonna review this game. Now keep this in mind that some of the problems I see are by the time I'm writing the script and when the video is officially released, some of these problems may have already been ironed out. And I got the game on the Nintendo Switch, so my experience on the game will be vastly different compared to everyone else. At any rate, let's begin my review of Sonic Frontiers on the Nintendo Switch.
Are you telling me you would leave behind someone in need?
No, but I'm also worried about you. You can't help anyone if you're stuck in limbo.
Diving deep into the new direction this series is taking, Sonic games are proven to be hilarious but are meant to be taken seriously. Something Pontek and Graf don't get with the series when writing for the meta era of games. That, however, is not the case for Sonic Frontiers, since instead of Pontek and Graf, the story is instead written by Sonic comic writer Ian Flynn, who, unlike the two writers before him, Ian was already familiar with the Blue Blur in terms of characterization and the series' tone. The story has Sonic, Tails, and Amy traveling to the Starfall Islands in search of the Chaos Emeralds, but something hits a tornado causing them to be trapped in cyberspace. Sonic was able to escape and is introduced to a disembodied voice that tells Sonic to find the Chaos Emeralds and destroy the Titans. That leads Sonic to running around the Starfall Islands, rescuing his friends, going into cyberspace and helping out the Coco inhabitants, and collecting the Chaos Emeralds to transform into Super Sonic and defeat each Titan. The consequences of freeing his friends and going through cyberspace is that it is corrupting his body each time he is infused with cyber energy, and too much will cause him to be stuck between realities. A new character called Sage attempts to stop Sonic in his tracks for reasons she will not tell him, since apparently he wouldn't understand and he is an enemy combatant, and running simulations to find a way to free Eggman from cyberspace without any harm, and learning about family and all different meanings of love. Not only does this sound amazing, but it also provides actual character development and a Sonic we all missed. Each character in each island goes through some arc that helps them grow, such as when Knuckles is realizing about the Coco's extinction reminds him of the extinction of his kind, reminding him that he's alone until Sonic tells him that he's not, and also tells him to relax and live a little. Given how we never see him actually living a normal life in the games or anywhere in media, it makes sense for Sonic to say something like that. Even Tails going through insane character development, which is basically Ian Flynn taking shots towards the horrendous Tails development of Sonic Forces. Tails believes that he's a burden to the people around him, and grows over time to even saying that he's going to start going solo for a while in order to grow more independent and be less reliant on his best friend every time. Really though, after all the crap Tails has been through the entirety of the meta era, this development was well needed and deserved and did Tails justice. Fantastic work, Ian Flynn. Well, it would be fantastic if I just didn't have a couple problems with the story, and firstly is the underutilization of Sonic cyber corruption. We do see when freeing Amy and Knuckles and Kronos and Ares Island that they do corrupt Sonic, but not too much for when he starts to feel it a lot. But come to Chaos and Rhea Islands and those really show the testament to Sonic cyber corruption. I just felt like that even if Sonic never had enough on Kronos and Ares, he would still be able to feel it a lot, and maybe he does, but we just never see it for ourselves, so we don't actually know. And having the corruption being a core feature of Reawakening the End and only really starting to utilize it on the 3rd and 4th islands makes it underdeveloped and poorly used. Then, with the disembodied voice being the true villain instead of Sage, I knew right away from the trailers, and I also knew that Sage at some point was going to sacrifice herself before the game was out. For me, I found the ending predictable and all-around anticlimactic when the ending just doesn't do much, especially when you compare it to an ending like Forces, the custom character moving onward on his journey and the Resistance rebuilding what Eggman and Infinite destroyed. That's not to say that the entire ending was bad though. Only the ending before credits 1. After that, credits 2 was a little nice chat with the 4 main characters before saying goodbye to the islands. And after that, the final ending, it's great to see that Sage has been resurrected. Also, what I forgot to mention is over the course of the game, Sage and Eggman have this father-daughter-like relationship, and they really show it. Eggman doesn't treat Sage like every one of his other creations, he actually cares for her as if she was his own daughter. And Sage treats him more than just his creator, but feels like that he's her actual father. And people say of how this particular moment of Sage's flashback of her and Eggman in cyberspace is unfitting and unneeded, and that the music ruins it all. First of all, I know people have different music tastes, but this music track isn't bad at all in my opinion. Second, the entire flashback is displaying a message of a family love that Sage and Eggman share with each other, as we see for every fucking cutscene between the two in cyberspace, while learning all about different forms of love. Sorry about talking about this particular moment in the story, but I really needed to get that off my chest since I think it is the most misunderstood moment in the whole game. And before I forget to mention, the Ancients. Since the story is all about origins, world building, expansion, and lore, we learn about the ruins of the islands of the ancients, the Coco, and the being that is putting them into extinction in the first place, and how everything all links together into the digital realm of cyberspace. But all in all, the story felt like an entire redemption arc for overdevelopment that Pontac and Graf destroyed, with Ian Flynn rising up and reviving all that was once lost. Short notice, this is the best story we've had since Sonic and the Black Knight in 2009, and you have no idea how happy most of us are about this turn of events.
I'm hanging on to the other side. I won't give.
Now that the story and characters are over and done with, we can move on to the presentation. I'm gonna get this out of the way first. The pop-in has been a big issue ever since the IGN first world premiere trailer, and yet it's still here in the finished release. When playing this game for a while, you can ignore it and it makes it less of an issue. Believe me, most of the time I forget about the pop-in, but it is still more often than not an issue with modern day gaming. Now then, considering that the Switch version is inferior to every other console and even the PC in terms of resolution and the overall quality and frames, I'm guessing the Switch version could have more issues with pop-in than any other version. Speaking of frames, despite every other version running at a smooth 60 FPS, while the Switch runs at a 30, the game still feels pretty good to play and there have been no significant frame drops on my end. Heck, any drops of frames at all, so at least that 5 years of development caused them to not make an HD Sonic Unleashed dilemma. With the core concept of graphical choice for Frontiers going for a natural realistic look, the game looks friggin' astounding, and more often than not, there are lots of comparisons to other open games like Shadow of the Colossus, Genshin Impact, and most commonly, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Every island contains ruins and architecture from the past of the ancients before the end began to crave for extinction, and the Starfall Islands being embroiled into war, and these ruins are pretty cool. How in a couple islands, a couple times you go into tomb areas, and even climb up several architectural towers to not only gain some collectibles such as the memory tokens, but to also catch a great view of the map from high above. Now then, people still complain about how the game looks like a 3D Sonic fan game, and I can see that, but it's more so a nitpick that can be easily overlooked. Still looks better than the controversy that is Sonic Omens. But what Frontiers improves in graphical terms also improves in soundtrack quality. Not gonna lie to you all, even before this game was released, I knew that this soundtrack would be my new favorite. The moment I heard this Kingdom Hearts-like verse in my IGN first announcement trailer on the official Sonic channel, I was hooked instantly. Frontiers is very varied when it comes to the soundtrack, and unlike Forces, the music fits in all the different scenarios, from calm-like serene music for the islands, triumphant music when reaching near the end of an island, dubstep and EDM music for the cyberspace levels, which mind you is miles better than what they did for Sonic Forces and Colors Ultimate. And who could forget the surprising turn of events for the boss themes.
It's time to face your fears when your time has come and gone. I'll be the one to carry on, and you can throw me to the walls, 'cause I am untouchable.
I crap you not, Sonic Frontiers became Metal Gear Rising and Devil May Cry 5. Vocal tracks in the series were already great prior, but I just find these to be the best vocal tracks and boss themes the series has ever had. Seriously, this soundtrack is so brilliant that I still can't believe that Frontiers got snubbed out for Best Soundtrack of 2022 at the Game Awards. composed by Tomoya Otani, and we also got so many vocalists such as Tyler Smith from Danger Kids returning from Sonic Forces, Kellen Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens, that was the one who was singing Undefeatable, Break Through It All, and Find Your Flame. Mary Kirk Holmes sings the main theme, I'm Here. The Japanese rock band 1OK Rock sings the amazing ending theme, Vandalize. The song Dear Father was vocalized by Quinn Barnett. And of course, returning from the 30th anniversary Sonic Symphony is YouTube sensation Nate Wants to Battle, with a meta-runner sounding song that is a letter to the fan base.
Boost your spirit off the ground. I'm a spark that won't go out. We can go much higher now. Gravity can't hold us down.
The animation was something that was criticized when the IGN first trailer dropped, but thankfully got better over time. Some cutscenes don't have much movement, mainly the optional ones, but the main story ones really do provide sweet animations. The meta-era voice actors speaking in deeper tones and sounding a lot more serious is something a lot of people were not all too pleased with, but for me, how seriously I can take these stories is overall performance, going double for the humor as well. It's why I consider Sonic Unleashed and Sonic and the Black Knight to have the best Sonic stories, because the overall tone for the characters fits into not just the narrative, but also works really well in the humor department. I really am never gonna overlook Roger Craig Smith speaking in a deeper tone for Sonic, because this is how I wanted him to be for a long time. Actually, the audio quality of Sonic Frontiers as a whole is very consistent and well balanced as well. I will say that the only time that this wasn't balanced well was during the final battle against the End, with its dialogue, the music, and the bullets from both the End and Supreme firing, because as much as I love the music, it makes it really hard for me to hear the End's speech. But you know, aside from all the problems, the presentation is very well done. Strap in, cause this may be a long one. As Sega and Sonic Team's first attempt at an open zone game, they've really done quite a great job. Granted, there are people that still don't like the floating railings and platforms stuffed across the air, but that I can respect. One of the main objectives of the open zones is collecting all the 7 Chaos Emeralds to defeat the massive titans, but how you do get them is all up to you. In spite of Frontiers not having much replayability like other Sonic games, the Starfall Islands still gather enough collectibles and challenges as a means of 100% completing the game. There are tokens called memory tokens, in which gathering a certain amount of them across the islands will allow you to talk to your trapped friends to progress through the game. There are also lots of optional dialogue that reveals more lore about the islands and the architecture that the cast theorize about what may have happened. Each one of the cast's memory tokens also correlate to their personalities. Tails' memory tokens are wrenches due to his high intelligence and technical engineering, Knuckles' ones are medals due to his brawling and fighting nature, and Amy's memory tokens are hearts, which of course translates about love. Sage also has memory tokens of her own for Sonic to collect around Orano's Island to talk to her, and yet surprisingly her memory tokens are the same as Amy's. She doesn't have much mandatory dialogue compared to the 3, however. Speaking of conversing with Sage, throughout Chronos, Ares, and Chaos, you can use the character's memory tokens to talk to Sage through optional dialogue, which I find to be very sweet. To gather memory tokens, you can collect them by running off ramps, doing the platforming section, side-looping around signs to possibly gain a bunch of them, etc. The varietal aspect of collecting the tokens is a necessity to gather each one to advance further on during the storyline. On the other hand, the memory tokens are the only things you collect. The bottom left of the game's HUD, you see stats of your offense, defense, speed, and ring max ranging from level 1 all the way up to a maximum of level 99. And this is where I start to talk about all the optional stuff of this game, because while you must get the memory tokens to beat the game, everything else is up to the player's true freedom and choices. That's right, free will, motherfucker! Anyways, about the stats. This will help you have an easier time in the game, but Takashi Iizuka said that the player doesn't have to upgrade the stats to beat the game. In fact, it's possible to beat the game with all level 1 stats. I even did it myself. If you really want to upgrade your stats, then you must search for Scattered Cocoa across the islands to take to the Elder Cocoa to upgrade your speed and ring max, and the Red Seeds of Power and Blue Seeds of Defense to take to the Hermit Cocoa to upgrade your, well, attack and defense. Duh. Let's talk about one of them first. You must find Makoko around the islands, but mainly on the island ruins and on portals. Sometimes you have to think out of your way to get them since they'll be up on higher parts and on the edges of the ruins. And once you take them to the Elder Coco... Jesus Christ, am I playing as Sonic the Tortoise? I mean, it couldn't have been an issue if we could have leveled up the stats with all the Coco we've had thus far all at once. I mean, my Herma Coco never had this issue because we just give it all our seeds. Context, Campbell. The Herma Coco never had this issue because we just give it all our red seeds of power and blue seeds of defense at once to level up. You can gather them in a few ways, but commonly is by doing the challenges scattered around the island. The challenges are simple, but they do reward you with one of the seeds at the end, and they reveal a part of the map. Some challenges include stuff such as finding up a tile path, putting out torches by using a Psyloop, challenges that test your parrying skills, and so many more. Even most of the Guardian mini-bosses themselves were fun to fight. I found them to be great ways to test the combat system of the game. Bosses such as the ninja battles test on your speed and quick reaction timing, while bosses such as the Sora just go for more simplicity kind of fights. Each Guardian battle really gives it their all, even as some of them are more annoying than others. Caterpillar! But every Guardian defeat rewards you with a portal gear, which allows you to activate portals to go through the digital realm of cyberspace. And with that said, let's talk about the cyberspace levels. These are definitely the most flawed and divisive parts about Frontiers, and I really understand why. Sonic controls horrible in these levels. The level design are 95% recycled from previous Sonic games, with most of them being from the adventure games and Unleashed. The fact that all the sceneries are just green hell, chemical plant, sky sanctuary, and this city level which people believe to be City Escape, Empire City, or an original setting. And also, most of the levels are short as hell, with most of them ranging from Sonic Forces level length. But after getting better at most of the cyberspace levels, I absolutely grew to like them. Every cyberspace level is 4 challenges to get vault keys, reaching the goal, clearing the stage in a certain time to get an S rank, getting a certain amount of rings, and getting all 5 red star rings. And while the cyberspace levels are just rehashes from previous games, I find it to be all about memorability, much like any other Sonic game. How well do you know the level design? Are you willing to explore them over and over again to find the quickest path? Can you find everything in them? But cyberspace levels have tons, and I mean tons of alternate pathways to find shortcuts, or in some cases, skip huge chunks of these stages. The best Sonic games are the ones that take a huge advantage of the memorability and exploration. Momentum doesn't have to be a core feature for me to favor them. So long as I am able to remember, find new pathways, and use a lot of them to my advantage to game at risk and reward system, I am bound to always replay them. The same can be said for the cyberspace levels in Frontiers. If you get all 4 challenges done in the levels, you get 4 keys and an additional 3 vault keys for clearing all challenges, which will allow you an even bigger chance of gaining each Chaos Emerald. However, not every Chaos Emerald will be in a vault, because throughout story mode, the Coco will need your assistance by doing quests such as gathering all the Coco back into place, cutting down the overgrown grass using Psyloop, gathering them and getting them away from the towers, destroying all the towers, gathering materials over the boiling hot lava, and free falling to lower the other side of the bridge. Before I get to the climax on what you do, there's something extra on what you can do in cyberspace. Something mysterious. Something dangerous. Something big. What a refreshing lake. Hello, Big. Do you mind if I borrow your rod? You know, these fishing minigames, they really are a redemption for your horrible gameplay in Sonic Adventure. You think so? Oh, buddy, I know so. I don't have to wiggle my right control stick like an idiot. All I have to do is just sit there peacefully and wait for the fish. Once I've got a bite, I can just reel it in forcefully by waiting until the white ripple and the red ripple overlap. And then I got some alligator for me and my girlfriend. If you ever want to fish for longer, all you just have to do is find my purple coins scattered across the Starfall Islands. They're hard to find, but Froggy sure likes them. No kidding. The bigger and rarer the cache, the more tokens I am bound to get. It's also weird that stuff such as springs and ring boxes are also just in the water. Do you know who's littering that stuff? I don't know. Maybe it's Dr. Eggman, but I haven't heard him fly past. I must have been dozing off again. But you can check out everything you caught in my Fishopedia book to fill it out. You can also use the tokens to buy everything you can get from the islands themselves. Perfect for speedrunners. Weirdly enough, there's also egg memos. Apparently, I heard these things contain interesting stuff from Eggman when he was stuck in cyberspace. Even a man with an IQ of 300 is still learning. Froggy always says that you learn something new every day. That's true. With an added update, you can now cook some nice meats by the lake. Hey, does Froggy like meat by any chance? Yes, frogs are meat eaters after all. Holy crap, I never knew that. Anyways, it's been fun. You and your fishing minigame are some of the best parts about this game, Big. See you later. Come back anytime. I'll let you borrow my rod. After you've gotten 6 of the 7 Chaos Emeralds and gotten to one of the last points of the islands, comes the final challenge before challenging the Titan bosses. Beating them will allow full-on access to the Titans and battling them. The one on Kronos Island is finding up a laser pattern. This one is honestly my favorite. It requires critical thinking, and since more than one beam of light is being moved, makes you stop and think to realize what might be the right pattern. I like it. And there's even hints on the ground to find out where each light must go. The one on Ares is easy enough. It's a crane game to match the colors. Like I said, easy. Though it may be challenging for those with color blindness since this game doesn't have a colorblind option. Unfortunately, what's even more painful is the pinball challenge on Chaos. Arguably the worst part of Sonic Frontiers. You have to get, I'm not kidding, 5 million points in this. And it doesn't even end until the ball reaches the open door, which is painful also. It really starts off so slow and it takes so damn long for the multiplier to go up since you have to collect red star rings to play the game of 2048. And even if you got all 5 million points and lost all your pinballs, too bad you have to restart the whole thing all over again. I'm starting to regret all my problems I've had about Casinopolis from Sonic Adventure. Although I will give the pinball minigame this. It does have its own music that reminds me of Sonic CD, Knuckles Chaotix, and Sonic 3D Blast. And then once you've beaten the challenge and gone through the path, it's time to face our fears. As the final challenge of the island, all the moments leading up to this, the Titan boss fights really go all out. Every Titan beforehand has been revealed to attack Sonic, mostly through the controller Sage, and after Sonic's first encounter with Giganto, Sonic understands that he can't beat the Titans in his standard and normal forms, and so the relevancy of searching for the Chaos Emeralds becomes a story and game importance, which is why Sonic runs from Wyvern and Knight since he knows he can't beat them without the help of the Emeralds. After Sonic and each of the Titans meet once again, Sonic must climb up onto the Titan to gather the 7th and final Chaos Emerald, unless you're Wyvern, which you run your way to get to its head. And so with the Emerald in Sonic's possession, he transforms into Super Sonic, absolutely demolishing each one of the gigantic beasts. And like what I did with the boss battles in my Metal Gear Rising review, I'm going to go over each one of the fights one by one, including the final boss fight Supreme in the end. Giganto will slash its hands towards Sonic, even doing a tornado spin attack. And in its second phase, one of these attacks go for all the Titan fights and basically activate a whole lot of lasers. Admittedly, they're easy to avoid, leaving a whole lot of room for you to attack the weak point of each Titan, that being the head, but they do add a couple more attacks such as Giganto, where it will activate a Kamehameha from its mouth and must do a quick time event to prevent the laser from actually hitting you, and even tries to slam you with both of its hands. Next up is Wyvern, and in this fight, both Supersonic and Wyvern fly all around Ares Island, and I mean all around the island, where you are dodging all of Wyvern's attacks to get to its head. And this fight is about testing your parrying skills. I was stuck on the boss fight for a bit on my first playthrough because like some others, I actually didn't know that you can hold the parry button down, and it'll still counter the opponent since you can hold the button down for as long as you want. This fight was truly a spectacle, but it can only get better from here. Here we have Knight, arguably my new favorite boss fight in the entire Sonic series. As the name implies, it carries both a sword and a shield. Once it starts blocking with its shield, Knight will activate the spikes on its shield, throwing it towards Sonic like a frisbee, and so you must guide the shield back to Knight to finally gain the advantage on it, all while dodging the missiles pushing you back. But unlike Giganto, Knight doesn't sit still. Once you attack it with its shield, Knight will move around a lot, so you must move faster than it is to knock it out into next week. The second phase is Knight throwing its shield across the entire arena, while Knight never stops moving unless you parry the shield and guide it back to Knight to stop it for a while for you to gain hits. Knight will widen its sword's range to attack Sonic into the walls, but with the help of QTEs and Sonic force kicking the sword out of the way comes the finishing move. Okay, so far so good. Alright, Sonic. Okay, you got the sword off of him. That's nice. Wait, no. He is not, no. Oh my god! No way! Is he actually using the sword? I'm a knight of the wind. Oh my goodness. He did not rule some nature. Nice one, Sonic. Nice one. But then after that, Rhea Island doesn't have a boss fight, and then the final island, Oranos Island, arrives with the first of two final bosses, Supreme. And this one was honestly disappointing. In some ways, it's just like Giganto, only with a rifle. But in other ways, the fight is very boring. And then there's the final boss exclusive to hard mode, the true final boss called the End. We do see this thing in easy and normal, but we never truly fight it. Well, it may be for the best because the end in Frontiers is very disappointing, considering it is just basically the hacking minigames. Holding the shoot button down for God knows how long isn't that interesting, and it leads to a very disappointing conclusion of an awesome game. For I will say, it was a nice treat to be all fans of Ikaruga. But aside from that and Supreme, the bosses are pretty damn great. But before we wrap things up completely, I gotta talk about a few more things. Sonic controls not that bad in the open zone, but there are issues involving some of the game's physics that can sometimes make the controls slightly weird, but it definitely feels better than the stiffness control of forces. The combat is very fun as well. Normal enemies of the game come in different types, with some utilizing more skill than others, but once defeated, they can sometimes reward you with a seed, a memory token, heck, even a portal gear if you're lucky. But more often than not, you will be rewarded skill points with which you could buy more skills if gathered enough, and these skills will make you have a grand old easier time with the game. And using a lot of the skills together can allow to chain combos like you're playing Devil May Cry. Inferior combat? Yeah, but it's still pretty fun nonetheless. And they can also easily help you with the Guardian and Titan bosses. Each of the Starfall Islands, even some of the weaker ones, are definitely very fun to go around and explore, so here's my opinion on each one. Kronos Island may be one of the smaller islands, but it's the island I go back to the most. Looking back on Ares Island more openly made me think, those corridors are annoying and it's easy to get lost in, but the overall island does provide the exploration so much better. Chaos Island is one of my guilty pleasure islands. It isn't a perfect island by any means, in fact it brings up a lot of the worst aspects about Frontiers, but considering its mass, I find it very fun to explore around, except for the parts where I easily get lost in. Rhea Island is pretty much just a blocked off part of Kronos Island, and there's really zero reason to go back to this one after completing it. There's no Titan or Guardian bosses, no memory tokens, no challenges, because Rhea is an island only used for the story mode, but climbing each of the towers was such a memory. And finally, Oranos Island, which made me realize that this may be my new favorite island in Sonic Frontiers, symbolizing that it is the end of the journey, more open, more fun to explore, better Guardian bosses. It has done what made Frontiers great but made it even better. And so, that's my take on the gameplay. Whew! Now, let's move on to the final verdict. In spite of some of its issues, Sonic Frontiers is a really great Sonic game. The idea of the open zone formula really works so well that in my eyes, the game never gets boring. Reinventing the series again, going back to the style where Sonic games were once serious and hilarious at the same time was so great. The fact that Frontiers is the start of Sonic's third era, although I personally say the fifth since there's the classic adventure Dark Age and Meta eras, and is the setting stone for the future of Sonic the Hedgehog, I am so excited to see where the series will go from here. I'm User1 Campbell, and you know, Frontiers is such a fun game that it became the Devil May Cry 4 of the series. A game that is unfinished but still manages to be extremely fun, cause even when the going gets tough, Sonic can find ways to rise from the ashes. Cause even still...